The book of Daniel is broken into two halves. We've covered the first half already, chapters 1 to 6. It's mostly narrative. Do you remember this over the last little while? I hope you've been finding it helpful. We've been seeing Daniel in action, his friends in action, as they live away from their home in the land of Babylon. Today, we start in the second half, chapters 7 to 12, which is mostly dreams and visions. And it's a different genre than the first half, a different style of writing. It's called apocalyptic writing. The genre is apocalyptic. That word literally means a revelation. Apocalyptic writing pulls back the curtain to reveal what's going on behind the scenes of history, and often what's going on behind the scenes of history into the future. Now, this style of writing is full of symbols and imagery. Hear this? You're not supposed to identify every little detail and what it means. That's not the point. That's not the author's intention in writing in this style. It's symbolic. It's poetic. It's to help you feel some of these realities. Now, it is pointing to important realities. It's revealing very real things, but in highly dramatic, evocative, figurative ways, and we need to keep that in mind as we work through it. Daniel has a dream, and visions pass through his mind. Let's pick it up from verse 2. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea." Pause there. In the Bible, the sea often represents chaos and disorder and sometimes evil. In verse 3, four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. That sounds pretty ominous, doesn't it? Emerging out of the chaos and the disorder and the evil are four great beasts. And the next few verses describe each of these beasts one by one. Verse 4. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me stood a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, "Get up and eat your fill of flesh." After that, I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Pause there. How do you feel as you read that? Confused? Yes. But how do you think you would feel if this was your vision, your dream? I think it's disturbing. I think this is supposed to bring out some sort of fear. Whatever these beasts represent, it is not good. They are creatures of prey. I mean, did you see the bear? Did you notice that one, the second beast? It is in the middle of devouring something. The 3 ribs are still in its mouth. And the 4th beast is described as particularly horrific, terrifying, frightening, destructive, and some element of it is arrogant and boastful. It's pretty disturbing. Who or what are these beasts? Look down in verse 15. I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit. Seems right. And the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all of this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. There it is. The 4 beasts point to 4 kings or potentially kingdoms. It doesn't tell us exactly which beast represents which king or kingdom throughout history, and so there's been a lot of debate about this amongst Christians throughout the centuries. There is a general consensus, and it's based on a number of things, including the vision in chapter 2. Do you remember that one with the big statue made up of 4 different materials? There are some definite similarities between this vision in chapter 7 and that vision in chapter 2. And all of that helps us to land on an interpretation. And it goes like this. This is the general consensus. I've got a picture to help you. The first beast is Babylon, the kingdom of Babylon that Daniel is living in as this vision was given. The second beast is the kingdom of Persia, or the kingdom of the Persians and the Medes. That's the next kingdom that just comes about in world history. The third beast is the kingdom of Greece, possibly with a particular reference to Alexander the Great. And the fourth beast is the kingdom of Rome, although some would say that the third kingdom is the kingdom of Rome and the fourth beast is something else, maybe a kingdom yet to come, a kingdom that will come right before the return of Jesus. That's probably what the beasts represent. The horns in the fourth beast are a little harder to identify, but if you look down to verse 24, it says they represent 10 kings. But it's tricky. 10 in this kind of literature is often symbolic for something. So is it 10 literal rulers or something else? Hard to say. But here's the thing. Here's the important thing to grasp. The specifics around all of this aren't absolutely crucial to pin down. Some Christians read this and they read the book of Revelation and they work really hard to say this thing represents this and that thing represents that, and usually American politics and the Catholic Church get a mention. And when COVID was on, there was a lot of references to Revelation and Daniel, and I think that trying to map all of this out neatly is a mistake. Because this style of writing, apocalyptic, one of its features is that it pulls back the curtain not so much to predict the future in very specific ways, but to show you things that are continually going on a grand cosmic scale. You got that? I think the same is true in the book of Revelation, which has this same style of writing, and a few things that Jesus says, if you want to read these later, Mark 13, Luke 21, Matthew 24. We want to be careful to read the Bible according to its literature. We don't always read the Bible literally, but we always read it literarily. So when it's poetry, we read it as poetry. When we talk about God having a hand, He's spirit. He doesn't have a hand, but He holds you in the palm of His hand. You get the sense of that truth, right? Even though you know God doesn't have a literal hand. It's poetic, but it still reveals a real truth that we really believe. Narrative should be read as narrative. Parable should be read as parable. Apocalyptic writing should be read as apocalyptic writing. Now, what is it? It's pulling back the curtain. Not so much to predict the very specific details of things that are going to happen in the future, but to show you things that are continually going on a grand cosmic scale. Every now and again, you'll get a real sense of evil in the world that really disturbs you. And sometimes it's quite personal, it's horrific, it's something that someone's done to you or something you've seen done to someone else close to you and there's no justice. Or sometimes it's an encounter, a very real experience with the demonic, with the occult, and you have this fear. Or it's something you observe in the world. A corrupt system, a corrupt government, appalling, beastly injustice. in the decisions of those in power, something that really gets you fired up and you go, that's not right, that's not fair. And you may even say this, you may even say, that is pure evil. Or if we're honest, every now and again, we might even shock ourselves at the evil that we're capable of. And you say something and you do something or you think something, and then a second later you're like, what the heck was that? Where did that come from? Yuck. Now, we have so much here in this country and on the northern rivers. Relatively speaking, life is really good. There's relative wealth, natural beauty, so much freedom of choice, so much so that many of us can enjoy all of that and forget the fact, or not even realize the fact, that we are part of a bigger story, a bigger struggle. Whether we're conscious of it or not, we are caught up in a cosmic story, a universal battle between good and evil. Is this how you see the world? You know, I've talked with a lot of non-believers over the years, and this is actually often a point of common ground. Maybe you're here today and you're not really sure what you believe yet. You're exploring Christianity. But this cosmic battle between good and evil, it resonates with you. You feel it. You look around the world. You look around your life. Maybe you even look within. And you go, yeah, there is a serious conflict going on. There is something big at work. Isn't this why the stories of good and evil, good versus evil, resonate with us so much? Yeah, my boys recently watched The Lord of the Rings. And I remember when I was younger and I read those books and I watched those movies, I was really drawn into... I'm not a huge fantasy fan. It's not really the kind of genre that I would naturally be drawn to. But there was something about The Lord of the Rings that resonated with me because it's this epic battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. These stories resonate with us because they are an echo of reality. They're a creative expression of what's actually happening in our universe. And the vision of Daniel 7 is touching on a cosmic reality. There is something dark and sinister about the beasts, isn't there? Whatever you make of the details, there is something dark and sinister about many of the powers across world history. Whether we're talking about Babylon or Greece or Rome, or whether we're talking about nations and powerful coalitions today, there is some dark, sinister stuff going on in the upper levels of power in our world, and there is something dark and sinister going on around us on the ground. And maybe at times you even sense that battle within you. All of this actually started in a really beautiful place. Can you believe it? It started in a garden. It started with a choice in a garden. Humanity chose to rebel against their creator God, and we've been doing it ever since. And this is how we as humans end up becoming beastly. The source of evil that actually makes us less than the humans we really should be, it comes first and foremost from our rebellion against God, where we set up... Notice the language I'm trying to use. We set up beastly kingdoms over and against the kingdom of God. How are you going? It's unsettling, isn't it, to dwell on this stuff? It's important. I felt really unsettled throughout the week as I was mulling all of this over. Daniel sees all of this horror. Beasts rise from chaos, earthly powers devour, evil seems unstoppable, and then, verse 9. Have a look. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The courts were seated, and the books were opened. Now, do you see the contrast here? This is a courtroom scene. We've got a few lawyers in our church here, and they'll be able to testify that a courtroom is a room, a space that is under control. The judge is in charge. The space is settled. Everything is how he determines it to be. There is a majestic order. Now think of the contrast. The beastly creatures writhe and around with violence and chaos, and there's this evil and destruction that seems out of control. But the Ancient of Days, who is God, he sits. You sit down when you're unfazed, yeah? You sit down when you're in control. He sits on his throne, ready to cast judgment. With thousands upon thousands, 10,000 times 10,000 standing before him, waiting for the verdict of this God. I mean, that detail alone would have helped Daniel, wouldn't it? You know, the multitudes. Think about the context in which this dream was given to him. He is among a foreign people, standing out as a faithful follower of his God. Remember him being in the lions. Who else was thrown into the lion's den? No one. It was just him. He was alone. But as the curtain is pulled back, he sees that he is not alone. There are thousands upon thousands who faithfully worship this God. If you are a Christian here today, if you're a follower of Jesus, but let's say you're the only one in your family. Let's say you're the only one in your workplace. Do not forget that you are not alone. Read Hebrews 11 and 12. We are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses as we run the race of the Christian life. You are not alone. God, the Ancient of Days, takes his seat and the books of judgment are opened. But I think this is kind of humorous. It's a little funny. This is one of the great anti-climaxes in all of history. Have you guys seen that very old movie, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark? In one scene, there's this swaggering swordsman, and he's doing this elaborate display, whipping his sword around for like a minute in this really threatening way in front of Indiana Jones, and it's quite ominous. And then Indiana Jones just pulls out his gun and shoots him, and that's it. That's it. It's just a massive anti-climax. Never mind that, this is one of the biggest anti-climaxes in all of human history. In all of history, in all of the universe. Verse 11. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. Wow, this is, it's intense. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority but were allowed to live for a period of time. So after all this build-up of the terrifying beasts in all their evil and power and rage, it's a bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? So the beast is just slain. The beast that was the fourth beast that was most evil and most terrifying was just like conquered like that. And the other beasts, it does say they're allowed to live for a period of time. I don't think we know exactly what that means, but it certainly means they're not outside the power of the Ancient of Days. Verse 26 puts it like this: but the court will sit, and his power, fourth beast, his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. That's it. Whatever power you sense is out there in the world, God, the Ancient of Days, is infinitely more powerful. Now, we tend to think of good and evil as locked in this 50-50 battle for the universe. Like God and Satan are in this arm wrestle, and it could go either way. And it's New South Wales, Queensland, who's it going to be? That's not how it is with God. That's not how it is with God and evil. whatever beastly evil you sense out there in the world, and whatever evil you catch a glimpse of even within yourself, God, the Ancient of Days, is infinitely more powerful. Are you on the side of this God? Is he your God? Are you one of his people? Because if you are, do not be afraid. This is the most common command in the Bible. Did you know this? Fear not. Can you see how, if you're with me and catching just a glimpse of who this God is, then you can absolutely go, you know what? I don't need to be afraid. Fear not. We're on the home stretch. Stick with me. Next two verses, some of the most important verses in the whole Bible, in the whole Old Testament at least. I think verse 13 and 14 give us a different angle on what's just been said. So the beast is slain and the body is destroyed. And verse 13 and 14 give us an insight into how and when this victory takes place. And in a minute, you'll understand why these are some of the most important verses in the Old Testament. Let's read verse 13. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. Now, this is an interesting thing in light of the context. We've been talking about beasts coming up out of the sea. This is one like a son of man coming with the clouds. So the kingdoms of the world are becoming less and less human, so to speak. They're becoming more and more beastly in their rebellion against God. But here, someone very human steps into the scene. There before me was one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days, God, and was led into his presence. He, that is the Son of Man, was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. This Son of Man receives from God absolute glory and power and the right to be worshipped. That's important. Across the Old Testament, worship is reserved exclusively for God. But here, the Ancient of Days is giving the Son of Man the right to be worshipped. What's going on? This is an intriguing moment. You know, sometimes, the most common name for Jesus is Jesus Christ. Sometimes people think it's his last name, like, Mary Christ and Joseph Christ got together and had Jesus Christ. No, that's not it. It's a title. The word Christ means king or anointed one. It is the most common title that we give him. But when Jesus talks about himself, he doesn't use the title Christ that often. He uses another title so often. You know what that title is? The Son of Man. He calls himself the Son of Man all the time. And when he's referring to himself like this, he's not just trying to emphasize his humanity. He is human. He's God and human. He's the perfect human. He's the perfect version of Adam, living the truly human life, never at all beastly in his rebellion like us. He is the perfect human. But when he uses the phrase Son of Man to talk about himself, he's saying a lot more than that. Look at Mark 14 on the screen. When Jesus is being questioned at his trial, right before his death and resurrection, then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is the testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah," or the Christ, same word, Messiah, Christ, King, "the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus, "and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest, very religious man, he understands what Jesus has just said about himself because he tears his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses, he asked. You've heard the blasphemy. What do you all think? And they all condemned him as worthy of death. Jesus right here is saying, I am not just any human, just any son of a man. I am the Son of Man. From Daniel 7. You know what that means? It means he's saying, I am the one. I am the one to whom God the Father will give all glory and honor and authority and sovereign power. I am the one who rightly receives the worship of all nations and peoples of every language. I am the one whose dominion is an everlasting dominion that will never pass away, and my kingdom will never be destroyed. Who do you think Jesus is? You're in church. If this is not normally your thing, this is probably the most crucial question that's worth your time. Who do you think Jesus is? This is who he says he is. What do you make of that? When Jesus was resurrected, and when he ascended to the right hand of the Father, Philippians 2 says, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So at his resurrection and ascension, he is given all glory and honor and power and authority as the Daniel 7 Son of Man. Authority and power is given to him. Authority and power over what? Everything. Over evil. Over worldly powers. Over you. And his resurrection is the absolute guarantee that he will return again to judge. He will return to open that book and hold the world accountable. You know, you can look around the world sometimes and wonder, well, if Jesus, the Son of Man, if he is in charge, why do the nations still rage? Why does evil still run riot? Why doesn't he put an end to the rebellion and the suffering and the beastly violence in the world? Is he in charge? It's the most common question that people have for God. God, why don't you end evil? Jesus, you're this Son of Man who's been given authority and glory and power, and why don't you stop it? Throughout this talk, I've tried to be careful not just to highlight the evil out there, the beastly powers in the world, but I've tried to gently prompt you to think about the evil in you. It's called sin. It may or may not look very beastly, depending on how you go about it. But from God's perspective, it is beastly. It makes you less than the human that God made you to be. It's this part of you that sometimes shocks you. When you say or do something that's shameful, it's this part of you that keeps God at arm's length. And it puts all of us in a dire situation where, listen to this, where if Jesus was to deal with evil completely right now, if he was to address every injustice right now, if he was to hold everyone accountable right now, to put it bluntly, we'd be stuffed. The darkness and rebellion is not just out there in worldly powers, it's in my heart as well. But here's the good news. The Son of Man is not just a righteous judge. He is a glorious Savior. This is one of the most famous Son of Man sayings from the mouth of Jesus. He said, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." The beastly powers kill and devour, but the Son of Man lays down his life. Wow. Now hear me. This isn't the answer to every question that we might have for God about evil in the world, but it is an answer to the problem that every one of us has, the problem of sin. Jesus has been installed as the Daniel 7 Son of Man, but his judgment is delayed deliberately so that everyone in this room has time. There's at least one reason why Jesus doesn't put an end to the evil in the world, because he is patient with you. He doesn't want anyone to perish, but he wants everyone to come to repentance. Now, each of us has a choice. Here's the choice. Will I continue to live in this rebellion against God and one day be held accountable for that? Or will I give my life over to the Son of Man, Jesus? Accept that his death was a ransom for me and now live my life for his kingdom. That's the choice that every one of us has. Where do you sit with it? I know many of you have made this choice and you've chosen to give your life to Jesus, the Son of Man. And I want to encourage you to not just trust Jesus for your salvation, not just to enter the kingdom of Jesus and give up a life of beastly rebellion, not just to embrace it for your salvation, but to embrace it in all of life. See your life as it really is, part of this massive cosmic story. There are big things going on in the world. So what do we want to do with that? We want to get on board with what God is doing in reconciling the world to himself through Jesus. Give yourself fully to the work of the Lord. You are caught up in a cosmic battle. The outcome's already been decided, but you still play a part. So live wholeheartedly for the kingdom of the Son of Man.